Today on Dirty Laundry, we have master coach, speaker, and author Betsy Pake, who is the founder of the Navigate Method. And she has been working for many years with women, helping them navigate the age-old question of do I stay or do I go? So her process is all about supporting women in making that big decision of whether or not to stay in their marriage or leave. So welcome, Betsy.
Welcome, Betsy. We're so delighted to have you on Dirty Laundry. Tell us about you. You're a coach, you're a speaker, you've got a podcast of your own, and you are on a mission to support relationships.
And help people with
really
that
women making
question.
that big decision, like making that decision on whether to stay or leave. It is a special kind of purgatory to be stuck there. So I would
it really
like to,
is.
Yeah.
We do a lot of like workshops and conversations, and I work with clients in a coaching capacity, same kind of thing of just helping them navigate, because it's not really, do I stay in my marriage or do I leave? It's so much more involved. And it's not like, oh, do I just no longer like this person or want to be with them? But what does life actually look like? So how did you get into this work? Tell us a little backstory about Betsy.
Well, I'm very chic, and so I've been divorced many times.
Many. Okay,
Many
frequent
times.
flyer over here.
Yeah. So, I've been to the rodeo a couple times, and I think that's what makes me so good at knowing how to operate through this. So I will say that I had a marriage where I have a son from that marriage who's now an adult. And, when that marriage ended, I think I was still just too immature to know what to do.
Oh.
And so we both just kind of were like, well, it's done, and it was done. And then when my most recent marriage, when that was ending, I didn't want it to end not because it was a great marriage, but because I didn't want to fail again. And I really struggled with that. Like, I don't want to be a 2-time loser or a 3-time loser. I was married for 10 minutes in college. So
It's like a Britney Spears marriage.
It's a hat trick of marriges.
Okay.
I'm not Elizabeth Taylor, but I have my own story, It's just part of the
diamonds
lore
to go with it. So,
yeah. But I will say that third marriage really operated like a second marriage.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I just didn't want to, I didn't want to fail.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good.
Right.
And so in that time where I just really wrestled with it back and forth for almost a decade, I really did a lot of my own work, because I was like, okay, if I'm in this, I'm going to figure out if there is any way to make this work, I will figure it out. And I think that was such an amazing process, because it couldn't work if just one person was trying to figure it out. But also it gave me so much insight. And after about 8 years, I left. He wanted to do the work. I leaned into hope, and I came back. And after a couple years, I came to the realization that I wasn't failing. I actually believe that a marriage is about growth, and I had grown, and it was really just a completion,
Yeah.
It was just time to move on. So I feel like I had the wisdom at that point to go. And so I help other women kind of navigate through that really difficult time of do I stay? Do I go? All the regrets and fears and, all of those things that happen when you're in that spot.
It's interesting you say growth, because I find, folks are either growing together or they're growing apart. But it's probably not that binary. What are you seeing?
Yeah. I mean, I think that lots of times what I'm hearing, and what I hear a lot, in my comments, people will message me a lot in my DMs and Instagram, is that there is a normal growth where somebody's growing and somebody's not, and then it changes, right? So it's sort of like you're both moving down the path and still keeping an eye on each other as you move through the path. And then sometimes someone just halts. They either never begin to grow, and that's something I get in my DMs a lot.
Yeah.
And then the partner that isn't growing is the one that's resentful for the one that is growing. And, I think it's an interesting thing, because how do you possibly not grow? You give birth to babies. How do you not grow? You get older, it's a normal, healthy thing to grow and change.
Yeah.
I think the trick to marriage is doing that dance together.
Yeah. And you talk about kids. I find, and I'm curious to see, because Amanda and I often talk about this, that there's sort of these kind of typical stages where we're seeing relationships, come to an end, where people are really asking the big question of, do I stay or do I go? So it's either, right after having babies and your relationship is just completely different than you had gone into. Maybe about the 10, 12-year-old mark, where the kids are now more independent, you've got a bit more free time, and all of a sudden you're looking at your partner going, oh, who are you? Where have you been the last decade? You're not, again, the person I remember. And then again, empty nesters, right? The gray divorce, when people are retiring and they have different ideas about what retirement looks like.
There's almost 4 sort of markers.
Milestones,
that they go through.
Because you're right, you have to grow. People are always changing. The world is changing. You whether it's with your job or with friends or taking care of elderly parents, right? That sandwich generation. I mean, there's so much on everyone now. Are you finding that to be sort of the same from your point of view?
Yeah, I almost wonder if women, when they have the kids that are 12, 13, and they're like, this isn't really working, because I think women can stick it out. I think they can just head down and do what needs to be done for everybody else.
Yes.
And I wonder if a huge percentage of those people, when their kids are 12 and 13, that it doesn't actually get better, and that's why they stay, but they're just hanging on by the fingernails until the kids graduate from high school. So that's something that I see, they've gone to college or they're graduating from college.
Yeah.
And now I'm finally okay, I'm ready to do something for me.
Yeah.
But I think that's a huge thing that people have to really overcome is, do I get to choose myself? What is it to be a good woman? What is it to be a good mother? I hear people say that all the time, a good mother wouldn't leave and take her kids away from their father. There's a lot of, I think, beliefs and values that we were handed from, other people or other generations that we just kind of took on, and it keeps us stuck in a lot of ways. But then I think, I got divorced. I'll never get the government involved again, ladies. Let me say that. But I was 53, when I finally got divorced. So I think that then you get to the place where you're like, oh man, I'm just tired now.
Yeah.
I'm just tired.
Yeah. Or it's menopause and you're just I'm not dealing with this shit anymore. I'm out.
Totally. Yeah.
I think, you're talking about the sacrifice. I think women sacrifice. There's a lot of shame that's put on women and mothers for doing anything for themselves when they have kids, as they're raising their kids. It's always that same old thing. Oh, mom's gone for the weekend, so dad's babysitting. Right. And I think that carries through their whole childhood. So finally, when the kids have launched and they're, out in school, university, moved out, then the mom almost has permission to look inwards and do something for herself.
And prioritize herself.
I won't be shamed for actually doing something for myself because I've done my job. I've sacrificed all those years. I've raised my kids. I put them first. I've stuck around in this marriage, and now I can finally.
And I almost don't even disagree with that to a certain extent.
Right.
I hate the social conditioning of it. I hate the double standard of men versus women. Men can go do whatever they want, but heaven forbid, women have a life. So that's the part, obviously, me and the patriarchy, I'm not here for it. However, when you do opt in to raising kids, there is sacrifice. It's inherently, part of motherhood, fatherhood, parenthood. So yes, and.
Yeah, but it's sacrificing. How far does that go? Do you have to sacrifice 20 years of being in a relationship that you don't want to be
being
in?
Unhappy.
Yeah.
Well, and what is that doing to your kids?
Well, exactly.
I think there's something to evaluate if I stay. It's not like everything's perfect if you stay.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I showing my kids with that? What am I showing them about how we treat ourselves? What am I showing them about what love is? And what am I showing them about relationship and marriage and what that should look like? If you're really miserable, and I know so many times women are like, I don't think they know. I'm like, oh, they know. They absolutely know.
The kids
and even
know.
if they can't name it, they can feel it. You can feel. I know my son said to me, it always read like you were two people that hated each other in the front seat.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, we're playing this totally fine. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The kids realize it.
They know. They know.
So you said your second marriage, second/third, was about 10 years of you kind of trying to navigate this whole life, do I stay, do I go? What did that look like for you? How did you form the clarity eventually to know it was right?
Yeah, I think I had to really undo a lot of patterns that I had. Like, look, there was a reason, like, as bad as he was, there was a reason I picked him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I say that with Jess, like, as bad as he was. Like, there is a reason that we choose the way that we choose. And so I had to really look at what was happening in me, that if what he was doing was so bad, why did I think it was okay to stay? I had to like undo a lot of that stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that like figuring out what patriarchal conditioning I had,
Mhm.
figuring out what I thought was a good woman, what I thought was a good mom,
Mm.
like really dissecting that, figuring out what I thought was a good man,
Right.
because he wasn't a bad guy. He just wasn't my guy, And so like, is that enough? Like, how do what am I really worthy of outside of everything that I'm producing and doing for everybody else? And like deconstructing all of that is a process. And I think that's the thing that gives you the confidence to be able to go, okay, you know what? I, I knew that if I was feeling this way, even though he said he wasn't, I knew he wasn't like, who could be happy with me if I'm on?
Right.
Right.
Sorry, he must have been miserable with
Yeah.
me. So I knew he would have an opportunity to have a happier life if he had somebody that was really honest with him about where they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, that's the thing. Often it's the women, right? I think it's the stats about 70% of relationships. It's the woman that's the driving factor in the leaving. But there's just no way that the men can be happy. Again, if we're looking at, heteronormative relationships.
Yeah.
How can you? And so what is it about the men that makes them cool to just, all right, head down, like you said, I'll just keep trudging along and see where this goes. It's always shocking to me as well how long they're willing to put up with unhappiness or.
Yeah. And, I think as much as like we say things about the patriarchy is a structure, and we don't have to go down that whole rabbit hole, but I think it's a structure that harms men.
Yeah.
Like, it's not men that we hate. I always joke my toxic trait is that I really like men, So like, but the structure harms them and tells them they're not allowed to have a whole lot of emotion, and not a range for sure.
Right.
And so if I'm only really allowed to have emotion that's anger, or I'm allowed to have emotion around sports, right? Like, that's a place where men can emote, like they can cry or they can get excited or they can. And so I think when those are your avenues, it is really hard if somebody comes to you and wants you to have an emotion that is outside of the context of a sporting event and isn't anger. Like, so I think they likely don't know that they're miserable because they can't quite access that.
Yeah.
And, it would be, and I think there's a shift where men are starting to do some work on themselves and look at their own stuff. And I think that's cool. And I think, younger men maybe are looking at this a little bit deeper. I think it's, there could be a big shift, and I hope for that. Yeah.
So when, we talked about what kind of relationships we're role modeling for our children. I'm curious, again, from your either personal or professional point of view, how much did your childhood and what was role modeled to you from either your parents or, other adults in your life play into this? Because I think the growth is also a lot of unpacking the childhood baggage and kind of, really making sense of all of that.
I think so too. And I always like to say, I like to do this, I call it context free, which means I don't have to dive into every awful thing that happened when you were growing up or every time you felt rejected by your dad or whatever it was. But we can actually extract a lot of lessons from our childhood. From my personal story, I could see a exact correlation to why I chose every time the way that I chose.
Yeah.
And because I can see that now, I know I won't choose that way again. I think I had a pretty, like what you would call secure attachment. I had a really lovely childhood, and I grew up as a happy kid. When I was in high school, I was at school one day and my mom died in a car accident. And so when I came home from school, she was gone. And my dad got remarried pretty quickly. And which I think is a testament to my mom because she did so much for him, and that wasn't a great relationship for me with his wife, who now he's been married to for, 30 something years. It wasn't a good relationship for me. And so my experience with relationship was to reach out. I would tell my dad, this thing was said to me and I didn't, it felt bad. And a lot of the feedback I got was, you're misunderstanding that. That's not what she meant. And I get it. He was dealing with a lot of things. But I learned in that the way to experience love was to ask for what you need and to be denied that. And so I sought out people who would play that out with me. And I really, truly believe that until I healed it in this last marriage, until I healed that, I couldn't see it any different. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't notice it. And I couldn't leave it. So the versions of me that stayed, I just honor her so much because she really went through it to figure this out and to dissect this. And I think that when we can do that, like when I say this marriage was a huge growth opportunity, if it had been even a little bit better, I wouldn't have done that work.
Right.
So I'm so grateful that it was as bad as it was, because it made me go, why did I choose this? And why can't I leave? Why don't I want to leave?
How long does this process, though, take? So someone comes to you, they're on this fence of, do I stay or do I go? They are not in a relationship that is, on paper horrible. How long does this process take? Are they in this limbo for years, trying to work their head around, is this a me thing? Is this a him thing? Is this a we thing? Should I leave? How long does that even take?
Yeah. I mean, I spun an Indecision for a decade. So I think you will take as long as you have.
Yeah.
When you're in college and the paper's due and you're like, I'm going to do it the night before. So I give people 10 weeks.
Okay.
10 weeks. And I will say that, I have no skin in the game. If they want to stay, that's great. If they want to leave, that's great. But getting to a place where you really know yourself and you have some clarity, I don't believe that it takes years and years of dissecting. I think you start replaying. I think when you're kind of forced to say, okay, is this my truth? Yes. Now move to the next thing. Okay, with this, what's true here? I think that really helps propel you forward. And momentum is a great vehicle,
And I feel like once you make the decision, once you make the decision to stay too, it's choosing to let go of a lot of the cup on the counter. For me, it's the wet towel on the bed. It's just getting over these things, accepting them, accepting that your partner is human, is fallible, is
accepting their limitations and not trying to change them and just accept them for where they're at.
Yeah, because I guess we hope
part.
Well, we hope that to be accepted as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're not perfect either, but what kind of questions do you have women asking themselves in this?
Yeah, talk to us about the Navigate program.
Yeah, because I'm curious to know what that actually looks like in practical terms.
Yeah. I think one of the very first things that we do is something that is going to feel really hard to you. And I say it, maybe not to you too, but I say you have to take total accountability for where you are. And that doesn't mean he's off the hook. It doesn't mean, well, he didn't do this really mean thing. It just means he did this thing and now I get to decide where I go. And so many times women say to me, I can't leave. I don't have the financial means to leave. And I say, you can. You might be living on the street and that's what you're not wanting, which is totally fair. There's consequences that we don't want to have. But when I accept that it's a choice that I'm here, then that's actually empowering because I'm here because I want to, because I don't want to be on the street. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How I'm saying that?
But how does one reconcile that? Because it's out of a survival and desperation, not because their heart is in it. Right?
Well, I think to be clear, we're not talking about people that are living in abusive relationships, right? Where there is someone is withholding finances so that they can't get out. Just to be perfectly clear, this is sort of your quote unquote average marriage where, there's been bumps along the road, but genuinely there's love and respect and kindness at the root of it. There might just not be compatibility maybe at that stage that you're having these questions.
Right. And the point that I'm trying to make, and I want to be really clear, is that so many times women would say, well, I can't leave because I don't want to do this to my kids. That's still a choice.
Yeah.
Because when I know I have a choice, then I'm here because I'm choosing to be here. And when I'm choosing to be here, then I am empowered.
Yeah.
As opposed to feeling like I have no agency over any of this. And I think that shift mentally, like, was my marriage good? No, it wasn't good. But when I got to the place where I was like, okay, I'm here because I want to try to figure this out, that was a huge shift for me.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do is we just offer the idea that you're choosing because that aligns with your values. You're choosing because it is something that you want to figure out. Like you're choosing because you want to be empowered and you want to work through things. Again, if you're being abused, that's not a relationship issue. That's an issue with him. And that's not something we would ever, we don't work with people in that. And we're not skilled in that. So with that said, then we work through like a lot of the things, like what are the beliefs that you were taught about being good and about how a woman shows up? And are those beliefs that you actually want to have and that you want to carry forward? And then we look at really like creating your life. If you got to choose exactly what it looked like, what would that be? And how would you move forward? What are the choices that you would make? What would be different? And I think sometimes we don't really pause to look. We just are in the motions, we just go through the cycle. And then all of a sudden we've, grown up like our parents without ever having a chance to look at it.
What about those relationships where women are feeling responsible for their husband's, emotions or their day? So you talk about the good days versus the bad days, but for many women, they feel that burden is on them to make sure it's a good day and being in that uncertainty.
Yeah. And I think that's really part of the deconstructing of what does it mean to be a good woman? Like, does it mean that I absorb the emotional capacity of everybody in the house, or does it mean that I allow people to have whatever emotions they're having? One of the things I hear a lot in my program is like, I feel bad, which is totally fair. Like, and that's a reflection on you. You don't want to make people feel bad. That's good. And they'll say like, I can't make this decision because it's going to crush him.
Yeah.
And I always think like the times in my life where I have grown the most, like the times in my life where I could see like my life actually really improved after that are the times when I had to deal with something hard. And I say, if your wife comes to you and tells you that she doesn't want to be in the marriage anymore, it's supposed to feel bad. Like it's supposed to feel, that's a really normal emotion for that kind of experience. And so allow them to have a normal emotion so they can be growing. On one hand, and I did it too. So I ain't judging. I'm just saying like where we manage everything and we hold all the emotion and we don't want them to feel hurt or sad. And then we're mad they don't grow.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm not allowing, like I'm doing my best to keep them exactly where they are.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing. And like when I talk about like having the awareness of your part in it, like these are the kinds of things that I'm talking about too.
Yeah. You talk a lot about the mirror, which I think that the older I get, so not in my practice per se, but even just with friends, with family members, people that have, had a couple almost decades in these relationships now, a lot of the times we as women hold up a mirror to our partners to try to elevate them. We see the potential in them. We want to change. We want them to grow. We want to facilitate that growth. And there are a lot of folks that pull back at that point because they don't want that accountability. They don't want to have to constantly be trying to reach the potential.
And you're mothering them also at that point too, a little bit, right? It's like your kid, you push them to do things.
Yeah.
You see their potential. Oh, but just try out for this team. You're going to do so great. Same thing with a husband. So it becomes that mother-child dynamic, which doesn't bode well for intimacy or romance.
Yeah. But are you seeing that too, where it's just like there's too much pressure put on the men? Again, let's just use this, gender bias here, but for the men to rise up, and then when they don't, or if they can't, it's just like, well, forget about it. I'd rather leave and be alone because at least then someone will stop nagging me or expecting me to do more and be more. And
yeah, I mean, I think that lots of times when women are like, I know it could be really great. Like I see this in him. I know he could I think we see our own potential, like
Yeah.
what we would do if we were in their position. And I
Yeah.
always say calibrate for action. Don't, like, if you were not able to hear what they were saying, would your eyes tell you everything you need to know? So calibrate for action. What is it they're actually doing as opposed to what they're telling you?
Is there like an
And I think
example of
that's-
that, like a day-to-day example of like what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think saying like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to work harder, I'm
Right.
going to go to therapy, I'm going to work on myself, but then never making the appointment. Right. And then I hear the woman go, well, I'll make the appointment for him. And I'm like, don't let him make the appointment or not, because you're getting a lot of information in that moment.
Yeah.
And so if you could release the idea that it was up to you to move everything along and say, I'm going to know if this can move along because I'm going to watch and see. I'm going to do my part and I'm going to watch and see if they can come with me. And I think when we start to know, like, these are my standards, these are my values, this is what I require, and this is what I'm willing to bring, then you just have to see if they can meet you, as opposed to like this big decision of like, oh my God, I don't know. Does the potential there? Like, just look at what's happening.
Right.
And calibrate on that.
So
I
when
think
people
that
come to you, like, do they often come in with like, okay, here's the situation, or here's the straw that broke the camel's back, and now I'm calling Betsy for help? Or is it just this, I'm feeling
it's
icky.
never ending. Yeah, death by 1,000 cuts for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things, part of the Navigate method is this like group process that we do every week. But I think that piece of the puzzle is so important because it takes away shame and you don't have to explain. Like everybody, like I remember saying something to my friends, right? I would give them an example of something that happened and they'd be like, well, that's not that big of a deal.
Right.
And it wasn't on its own.
Yeah.
But with the history of, 15 years like that, then it was.
Yeah.
And so I think when they come into that group and they get this experience of like, there's no shame in it and everybody gets it. I don't have to explain it. I just have to say this thing happened and they go, oh yeah, I'm sure that was one of 500,
Right.
and it helps.
It's the pattern. It's the pattern.
Yes.
And is that part of it, looking for those patterns? Like, what's the like tangibles? Are they writing a journal and noticing, okay, he did this or I did this and I felt this way? And like, what's the actual sort of assignment? What's your homework?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on any given week, right? And that's really sort of our secret sauce, is that it is very much going to, when we think about problems, I always think like we think about problem, this is the problem. And we really work on the problem adjacent. I think that's the best way to say it, because I believe that it's the scaffolding that is keeping the problem available, right? That's keeping it access to you.
Yeah.
And so, on any given week, it could be like really diving into something and really writing down all your beliefs. But it also could be really understanding, how do I actually choose those? How do I shift those? What are the things that I need to be thinking about? I like to do things in a million different ways because I think everybody learns differently and around every certain thing. So there could be worksheets, there could be videos, there could be audios, but it's all in an effort to create a new scaffolding that you're choosing, as opposed to just like, this is the silo that I was given, at age 7, and now this is the silo that I live in.
What's the difference though between like choosing and like accepting or settling? Like they're all kind of cross over.
Yeah, that's a good question. So choosing is, I think, when you have an awareness that this is what's happening and this is why, and this is acceptable to me. I think, what was the other options? You
Settling.
said choosing.
Settling and accepting, and just be like, yeah, I guess settling and accepting are kind of one and the same.
Yeah, I feel like you're either
Just
choosing or you're settling.
Or you're settling, choosing or settling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I don't even think, I think you're either choosing or you're unconscious. It's just happening. You just think it's reality. I don't think those two things are actually opposites, like choosing or settling. I think I can choose something that might not be my ideal, but if I know and I have awareness of that I'm actually making a choice, as opposed to like, I don't know, this is just how it is. Like
Right.
there's so many things that people never even look at because they go, well, that's just reality.
Right.
But it's likely not. And I know that's a odd concept, but it's likely not. Like our reality is really created by all the things we believe. And that's actually what we're able to see. So when I can shift and get an opportunity to have an opening to see something different, then all of a sudden I'm noticing totally different things happening in the marriage, right?
Yeah. You know, as you say, the brain likes choice. So I almost wonder if even if you're settling, let's say, but you're choosing it, that's the language you're using. I believe language is so powerful. The words we choose have such an impact. And so if you're saying, well, I choose this, I will accept their flaws, or I will accept these things that, you know, maybe I don't love, but it's not going to, you know, be the end of it. If I choose that, there is a little bit more of an empowering position versus, okay, well, I guess this is my fate. It sucks. I'm settling. Womp womp. Like it feels active versus passive, almost the way I'm hearing it.
It reframes it in a way that you can actually
feel good about it.
Feel better about it. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
yeah. And I think anytime that we feel like we're making a choice, that I can see what's happening and I'm choosing this thing, then that in itself is empowering, which brings me back to the very first thing I was saying, right? When we know it's a choice, then it becomes empowering.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's tons of things in our lives that we just do and we think that's just how it is. And we all do it. It's a really normal part of how our brain operates and it's helpful to us.
Yeah.
Our brains have to generalize or we would be overwhelmed with all of the different things coming into our nervous system.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really important thing to note that I can only take in, I can take in millions of pieces of information into my nervous system, but every second I can only process around 125 of those pieces. And so if that's true, that means there's a ton of information that I'm missing. Now, is that information important? Maybe not, but maybe. And so when I can move just a little, I always say it's like we're standing in front of a disco ball. And the mirror, disco ball is just a bunch of mirrors. I'm getting reflected back based on where I'm standing. And so if I can move you just a little bit to the left, you're going to see something different.
Yeah.
And I think that is when you go, oh, okay, well, I can choose to still stand in the other spot, but now I can see that there are a whole bunch of other spots I could choose to stand in too. And how do I really want to move? How do I want to live my life?
Yeah. Shifting your perspective is so powerful. As somebody who works with both sides, right? As mediators, we support both parties. The ones that choose it and the ones that didn't.
Yeah.
Right? It's night and day. Being in the driver's seat versus being dragged along to a new future that you never wanted, did not choose, but have no choice in, and yet it affects everything.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a thought if you're open to it. So they do have a choice. So it feels like they don't have a choice in what's happening. And that could be true. Yeah. But they have a choice in how they go from here, how they respond to it, how they process it, what they think about it. That is all internal. Yeah. And so this is like such a good example of when I'm saying like you have a ton of choice. Yes, the other party might be making all kinds of decisions and you're going to have to live with those decisions and you get to decide how you live with those decisions. It's not always easy and it's not always fun or good or even what you would have chosen. But I think when you can see that there's choice still there for you, then you go, okay, well, now I'm going to go live my best life, even with that happening, because now there must be something. And I'm of the belief that there's something better that's on the way, that I'm given.
How much of your program is about the inner work versus the outer, like communication or bids for connection or, like bringing in the other person versus, okay, they're over there, I'm over here, I'm going to do my shit. And if they catch up, spectacular. Otherwise, I'm still so far ahead that if and when I do leave, I'll be on more solid footing. Yeah.
I mean, I think that the goal with everybody that comes into my program, and I think with everybody that's in this spot, really, right? You're struggling because you're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
If you were ready to leave, you'd already be gone.
Right.
So there's a moment of hope. There's something left in there that you're trying to grab onto. And so I think it's really important. And again, we're using the relationship as a mirror. So I don't want people opting out from the relationship. I want them doing their own work and trying things. I always say, like, experiment, try this. You know, some of the Gottman stuff, like, how do I communicate in a different way? How do I show up? How do I recognize the little things that he's doing? You know, when we first start dating somebody, we like delight in all of the little things that they love. You know, we find that like quirky and fun and discovering about them. So as you learn how to discover stuff about yourself, you can turn that around and use that to discover about somebody else. Like you can ask, when you're asking yourself different questions and you know what those are, it's so much easier to ask someone else a different question. Then your response isn't being activated and being defensive. Then your response can be more thoughtful and like, oh, that's really interesting that you're saying that. Well, like, I've never heard you think, like, what is that? What's your thinking process? Like, we really get into like, what are the words people are using? And that's telling you so much about how they construct their reality. And you might have a totally different version of reality. I know that word reality is a strange word to use in this scenario, but how are they constructing reality? Like, I have people that will come to me and they'll say, I got married, and as soon as I got married, it was different. Well, what was his version of being married? What was that? Like, what did that mean? And I think we go off this like idea of what things are based on culturally. But get really inquisitive. And I think when you learn how to ask yourself better questions, you can do it with somebody else.
I mean, curiosity is literally what's going to save yourself, your relationships, your life. Like, it's so important to lead with curiosity. Even right now, I'm trying to raise teenagers, and we can't fix. We have to just stay curious. We have to let them learn and make those mistakes and just be supportive. And I think it really does go back to our romantic relationships as well. If you can stay curious without judgment, but we get into these patterns. And again, 10, 15, 20 years of the same repetition, day in, day out, we jump to conclusions that maybe aren't fair. We don't actually, ironically, want people to change because we're so used to the same patterns that we actually don't let them. We pigeonhole them into this one, superficial kind of role. And then when they veer, we don't really want them to veer because now that's change, and change is scarier. Even if the known sucks, the known is still more comfortable.
So you stop asking questions.
So you just stop asking questions.
Because you don't want the answers.
Exactly.
Because you want to predict and know and not hear something different.
Yeah, or confirmation bias, right? Like, I mean, who knows? I'm sure you've seen every version of these kinds of conversations in your work, but it to me is so interesting that when we just stop and ask questions and stay curious, how much more we actually get from others. It's pretty cool. It's hard to do.
Lots of times I'll say to a woman, like, just for tomorrow, pretend you're an alien, like, wake up, pretend everything is new. Like, you've never noticed all these things before and see what you notice. I remember years ago, I was driving my son to high school. And we went the same way every day. I would roll out of bed, get my coffee, we'd get in the car, off we'd go. And one day we were driving and there was a garbage truck in front of us. So we had to stop. And I looked and I was like, oh my God. And he was like, when did that get built? It was like a huge warehouse.
Hilarious. Didn't even notice it.
Didn't even notice it.
No.
Our brains deleted it because it wasn't important in getting him to school. And our brains do that naturally. It's helpful. But if you are with somebody a long time, you're likely just deleting some things you might find delightful. And so go into it with fresh eyes and just see.
I love that.
Like a relationship reset.
Yeah.
I like that.
I love this. I know. Even I started walking the dog in the reverse loop.
Oh, did that throw him for a loop?
Oh, he was delighted. I was shocked. I was like, look at this neighbor's landscaping. Oh, they've got a new car. Oh, it truly is impressive. But we are so inundated with so much information now, especially with internet and social media and what have yous. It's just too much.
We don't want more.
We can't handle more. Everyone's at capacity. Everyone's at, the analysis paralysis stage where it's just too much. And then we go back to our relationships, which are our safe place. And we kind of treat each other a bit like punching bags, because where else do we have that sort of safety and security to do so when we're all being inundated? It's too much. So I love this. I just lead with curiosity. And if you're trying to decide whether to stay or go, call Betsy, use the Navigate method, figure out what you really want, what you can accept, what you can choose. Like, try to use the right language here. Don't settle. Make a choice.
Make
be
a
empowered.
choice. Whichever way that choice takes you, make a choice.
Yeah, that's so great. And so people can find you on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's just my name, Betsy Pake. I'm very creative, so it's just my name. And on my website, same thing, Betsy Pake, like a cake, but with a P.
Betsy Pake like a cake.
Thank you, Betsy. This was such a good
wonderful
convo. So many people are sitting on this fence of, do I stay or do I go? And I think you're really delivering a lot of clarity and helping relationships. I mean, even though we're in the divorce world, I still love love.
And
I love
bring a
love
new perspective to a new outlook to the way people look at their own relationships and look at themselves and what they want, and sometimes bringing some fresh eyes.
Yeah. We talk a lot about the stigma of divorce, but there is so much stigma in staying as well, especially if someone did cheat or did do something, that we quote unquote call egregious. Then you go back to him, and it's a lot. And so I think we just need to do way less judgment. Hard choices either way. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. We so appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Thanks so much.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.